Hello everyone, Wojtek here, and for this video I will be doing a follow-along tutorial. I will be making a level design of the scene you can currently see in the background in Godot 3.3. I tried to put links to all the assets and tools you need in the video description. I'm not sure how much interest there is in this topic, but I hope you will learn something useful. So let's start. So the first thing I will do is change some settings in the project settings menu in a quality tab in the rendering. And first thing I would recommend is increasing this atlas size and atlas subdiv reflections. It will give us a better looking result, of course if your computer can handle it. And I will increase anisotropic filter level to 16 and later on probably we will also use FXAA anti-aliasing. It's really blurry one, but it's the best we can use for a lot of alpha blended billboards in Godot. And we also will be using a lot of plugins. So first of all, a Godot Ray plugin, so the effects we add Godot Ray to our scene. It's really nice looking effect especially for a forest environment. Time of the day will allow us to easier set up our environment with clouds, with a proper colors, with a fog, and so on. It also enables us to use a time of the day node, and we could animate our scene as you can see or so in the video beginning. Waterways by Casper is a plugin which we'll use to generate a river in our scene. Height-map terrain by Xylan is probably known by every Godot user, and scatter tool also by Xylan. It's just a simple tool to place your assets faster on your terrain and other meshes with collision. And the last thing before we start, all the textures used with alpha channel for the vegetation are exported in a DDS format in GIMP. So you need to do this because by default Godot generates MIP maps, so the smaller version of the texture which lose details when you get further away. So when you're exporting in a GIMP for a DDS format, you use these settings. You select generate MIP maps and you go to the advanced options. You change your filter for the favorite one, and the most important part is to select this preserve alpha test coverage and set up it as high as you want. I'm usually using 0.91, 99 or 0.5. It depends on the texture and I just usually check it in the engine later. So yeah, I think that's all, and we can start to create our new scene. So first let's create a new 3D scene node and let's add few things. Before we start adding terrain, let's add a directional light so that we can see it better. Yeah, let's position it so we can see details on the terrain a little bit better. And let's add the terrain. Terrain, yeah, new node. As always, at the beginning you can't see anything, so you need to create new data directory, and we'll use data terrain and create our new folder here. Let's name it tutorial scene, and let's click OK. Select current folder. Yeah, and there is our terrain. First thing I would recommend doing is actually changing the scale, make it smaller so we can fit more details. So let's set up it at 0.5. Yeah, and what I like to do is just moving it to the center. So let's transform it -128 on an X and -128 on a Z. Yeah. And that's basically our terrain. Let's save our scene in the scene folder. So let's create forest tutorial. Yeah, that sounds good. And maybe let's add some textures. So don't click edit, click import, and let's add new texture set. Select load, and let's go to assets, textures, and let's select this ground 48. I actually changed a little bit this texture. I just desaturated it in the GIMP, so it fit better, but we can also use this original color, so let's use original one. Okay, and this textures is actually in a DirectX format, so we need to flip it, and let's set up a resolution a little bit higher, and we need to change import directory, otherwise those files will be imported along your scene file. So let's go to the data, terrain textures, and let's create a folder, forest tutorial. Okay, let's scan folder and import to textures. Sometimes there's this error, so let's click just again. Okay, close. It's looking pretty nice. Okay, so what I will do now, I will disable a grid and origin, so we can see it a little better, and I will add a mesh instance. So yeah, with cube or cube mesh, I will change its size to 2 meters by 1 meter, and this thing will represent our player. So yeah, we can know if our textures are up to scale or we need to change something. I'll actually move this slide a little bit higher. Okay, and we can enable shadows, so it will be looking a little bit more realistic already. Okay, so as you can see, this texture is a little bit too large, so we go to the terrain shader, and we change some parameters. So first thing, we select the classic 4 shader, and we change UV ground scale per texture. This is first texture, so we decrease it. Let's see, maybe a little bit more, like 8, 7. Okay, that's looking good. We can also enable a tile reduction setting, so as you can see, this is less repetitive looking, and I think that's looking pretty good for the beginning. Also, I will include in the video description my shader for the terrain. So this is this one, and you can see the difference right now. It gives you a little bit more control over your textures, like normal map strength, so you can increase it and you can change roughness, yeah, and things like that. Okay, but what we now need to do is to create a little bit of variance in this our terrain. So I will be using a graphic tablet for that, but you can also use a mouse. First thing, you need to select your brush, so I like this one, and it's actually a built-in one in the terrain plugin. So let's open it. Let's increase the size. It could be 200. Let's hide our mesh for now. Let's rename it to player scale. Okay, let's go to the terrain and decrease the brush opacity. It's really important to set it pretty low, like 9 or something like that. And using your tablet, just tapping on the scene, or maybe I'll use my mouse because my tablet is not configured. So as you can see, we have those a little bit of small details. That's our base. We then will create some mountains and river. But for now, let's focus on this more natural looking terrain. Okay, so let's select a different brush. Let's use this one and just tapping in the different places, and it's already looking a little bit more natural and usable. Okay, so I think it's looking pretty okay for the flat terrain. So we can go select different brush and maybe create some mountain on the edges of our scene. Yeah, you can tap and just by keeping your mouse or circling around, can create those shapes which in my opinion looking a lot more natural than just drawing your mouse with left button clicked all the time and brush opacity set a lot higher than 9 or 10%. So yeah, let's change the brush again. Let's select this vegetation. I don't have really any plan for this, so I'm doing it live. So I'm not really sure what we'll end up with. Okay, so yeah. Okay, let's go to the player, and by clicking F you can focus on this object. Okay, so it's went underground. Yeah, okay, so it's looking pretty nice. Maybe here we can increase a little bit the height of our terrain. So yeah, maybe a bigger mountain here. Let's change our brush again, maybe this one. There's also an erosion brush, so this is this thing right here, and basically what it creates, it's the illusion of this natural process of erosion, so the water draining down the hills and creating a little bit more natural look. I'm not really sure how well this works, so I'll switch back to classic rice brush. Okay, so yeah, I think that's looking pretty nice. We don't have a texture yet, so yeah, okay. And maybe we should start by adding a river, or just a place for our river. So yeah, I will change my brush to maybe acrylic one, also a bit one, and let's decrease our brush something like 30. Yeah, it's looking pretty nice. So we create our river right here. We use lower height mode, so just drag and click, maybe increase our brush opacity for this thing. Yeah, and let's drag and drag until we see our river taking place. Okay, so it's actually there, maybe a little bit more. So again, let's drag. It's best if those edges of the river would be a little bit uneven, so it will look a lot more natural. So I will try to imitate it. Let's change the brush or something like that. Maybe let's increase a little bit and increase the strength, and just by clicking we will add this natural distortions and things like that. Yeah, so the river will start here and it will follow somewhere there. Okay, I think yeah, we can smooth it out. Maybe this brush will be better. Okay, not like that, not like that, like that. Okay, and I think it's looking pretty nice. So let's move to more of the texturing. So this texture is pretty boring, so let's add another textures. So not edit, import. Yeah, so the texture one, well, we will load, well, we had a 48 ground, so let's select 36. We have a color fix and a standard color. I will use a standard color again, and flip Y and import to textures. Okay, importing is done. So how does texture look? Okay, so let's decrease, change, maybe acrylic. Let's see. Oh, it looks a little bit too light for my liking, so I would choose my darker version and import the texture. It will be a lot faster. Yeah, okay, close. And how does it look? It's looking like that. So yeah, it's looking, I think, a lot better. So now we will color our river. So we have this darker colors details, and actually if you don't like these sharp edges of the textures, you can disable a blend depth setting, so it will be a lot softer. Of course, it's not free. It will look a lot less sharp in these blending areas, but that's actually the thing we want for this scene, at least. Okay, so also I think that the scale of this texture isn't really the best either, so we'll go to the texture and let's set 10 maybe. Yeah, and I think we should actually give it a little bit more. Yeah, something like this. Yeah, it's free, so we can use it as much as we want. Okay. And actually, if the texture is still too light, we can always change its color by using this color paint setting and increasing decreasing the color to grayish. And yeah, we can increase the brush size, and just by doing something like that, you can see it's looking a lot more natural. Okay, and I think the thing I will do also, I will select this brush and also tap it a little bit on this world map terrain, so that we have a little bit more variation, because ground isn't always static one color. So yeah. Okay, and I think I've actually painted a little bit more here. So yeah. Okay. Okay. So that's this for the river. We can increase our roughness a little bit, but don't play with roughness yet. We'll use a reflection probe for that, and we'll see how it looks. And if we need, we can also enable a tile reduction, but it's not needed for this case. Okay, and now let's move to the mountains, and let's actually import another texture. Okay, so first of all, we will load a snow texture for the top of our rocks, of our mountains. So, well, snow 02, color, yeah. And the reason we are doing this first instead of already selecting rock texture is the fact that the fourth texture, so the last one, for this shader is using something called a triplanar mapping, so it will look a little bit more on this stiff, on this perpendicular angles to the camera. Okay, so yeah, this is a snow, and let's load another one, and actually the rock texture. And this is the rock color, also flip. Select the flip. Yeah, everything is looking alright. So let's import it. Okay, and everything is imported. We can close, and we can paint some rock texture. So select rock texture, this is the last one, and we enable this triplanar setting, and we will limit the slopes only to the steeper ones, so it won't paint on the flat terrain, it will paint only on the steeper angles. Yeah. And if we want, we can decrease a little bit and paint it. Maybe that's a little bit too much. Paint it on some places in this lower terrains, some kind of rocky settings. Here, there. Yeah, I think it's looking pretty cool. Okay, so the last texture we have is the snow. So they're doing almost the same, but in the opposite direction. So we're painting it, maybe not here on this the highest mountains. We can enable maybe a little bit more. Okay, so and the thing about this depth blending is that it will look much nicer on the mountains, so we'll lose that if we disable it. Okay, so I think it's looking pretty acceptable right now. Okay, so if we enable this the blending again, as you can see, it looks much nicer. Yeah, I think I will add it a little bit more here. Yeah. Yeah. In my opinion, it looks maybe not that long. We need to decrease the brush. Yeah. And that's the end result for now. Okay, so now let's move on to the lighting our scene. So first thing we need to do is to add an environment node. So let's add it and let's create a new environment. And the scene went black, but don't worry, we select our background. We actually will use a color plus sky option. So let's find our texture. Okay, so this is the one. I need to create a panorama sky first and place it here. Yeah, and let's change our color to something more bluish. Doesn't really matter, it will be changed later, but yeah, for now it will do. And we won't enable fog right now, we'll enable it a little bit later. We can change our tone map if you like, already to ACs, but I like to work in linear first, so I have a better understanding of the colors in the scene. So yeah, and we can enable screen space and bit occlusion. I actually like to reduce the size of this thing and add the second radius with a little bit higher. Also, I'm setting a light effect really often for the better effect, and let's select the high quality, the sharpest edge. Okay, and we can enable blur for like 100 or maybe even 150, but for editing this scene is actually more irritating. So yeah, that's our world environment. Let's set up our time of day plugin with our background clouds. So let's add a child and let's search for a sky dome. Yeah, here it is. We create it and it's already looking a lot better. Let's open a sound tab and let's assign our directional light. Well, we can enable it to sun, and again in the sun. Yeah, okay, so that's it. Actually, I don't really like this red tint, so I usually go to white and a little bit whiter. Yeah, and I like to increase the strength, but not much change right now. Okay, we can also increase the tone mapping level, stuff like that. Dome radius to 20, for example. Okay, so that's how it's looking right now. And we need to add another node. It's called time of day, and as a target we need to set a sky dome. And right now we can change an hour of our scene. So let's set up something like for example 12. Let's see how it will affect, or does it really effect. Let's reassign our sun because something. Okay, that's much better. So yeah, that's a 6 hour. Okay, yeah, everything should be fine except our ambient occlusion. So let's go again to our settings and let's decrease it a little bit more. Maybe 25 here and 0.1 here, and set up a strength to 1.5. Well, that's the best we can have right now. Yeah, maybe the edge sharpness was too high. Okay, something like 12. 12 looks acceptable for me. Okay, so the thing we need right now, I think it will actually be a river. Okay, so let's add a river node to our scene. So add a child, let's search for a river, let's create it, and it will be added somewhere in the center here. So let's move it. Again, press F to focus on it, and you can scroll. Of course, you can move with the right mouse click and WASD keys. Rotate it something like that, and you can place it in the origin of our river. So let's move it up somewhere here, I think, seems to be right. Okay, and you can edit our mesh. So yeah, we increase, and by dragging this handle here, you can pretty much create a wall river. Yeah, so this segment will move down. Let's change the angle a little bit. So let's move it down, something like that. Let's increase the width of our river. Yeah, and by selecting a snap to collider and selecting adding new handles mode, we can just click. Okay, so first thing, we need to go to terrain node and select terrain, update reader collider, and go back to the river. And now if we click in our terrain, it should create a river. It's a little bit low, but we can raise it later on. Now we just place our handles in correct places. So yeah, that's it, I think. And the thing we are doing now, let's select select a handle, click Y on the keyboard axis, and by clicking Y you're looking only in the Y direction. So yeah, you can see it's moving. Oh, snap to colliders again. Why? Okay, and we'll increase each of these handles to the level we are satisfied with. And with this vertical handle we can increase the width so we can see that a bit better, maybe a little bit higher even. Yeah, again, raise it to the level you're satisfied with, and let's move to the next handle, somewhere like here, more white, somewhere like here and more white, same here. Okay, more white, okay, and I think it's looking pretty much okay for now. Maybe we'll return to it later. And there is this red warning, so we'll follow the instructions. So go to the river and generate flow map. Okay, and this is our flow map generated. It's looking a little bit much more natural, but we can further improve by increasing its transparency, for example, even higher, and also we can make it a little bit darker, as I like for these scenes. Roughness is a bit high for my liking, and we can increase edge fade, so it will be fading a little bit better in our terrain. Yeah, it's looking pretty decent. Also, we can decrease the speed if it's too fast, and I like to decrease the normal map, it's looking a little bit much more flatter. As for the foam, well, you can play with this, but I think a little bit it's not a bad idea. You can make it darker, lighter, something like that. And I think we can also increase the depth, like 30, I think 20, 15 even works pretty nice. Clarity, yeah, a little bit more clarity for this scene, something like this. Okay, and I think we're done with the river. Okay, so the next thing we'll add is some assets like trees and bushes, because right now our scene is looking a little bit empty, so we'll be using a scatter node for that. So let's add the child node, let's search for a scatter and create a scatter node. And we'll add our assets, so let's go to the assets, models, trace, inferior and configure Macedonian. If you can't see the preview, you can open the scene in the another tab and it will later show up here. Okay, so the thing you need to remember before using a scatter, you need also to go to the terrain and update with your collider if it doesn't work properly. So yeah, okay, so let's select our tree and let's place it here, here, here. As you can see, it's a little bit offset to my mouse cursor, but I can live with that. Okay, so yeah, so left mouse is adding new assets to the scene and right is removing, so you need to remember it. You can't use this free look with this add-on, which annoys me a little bit, but yeah, with a shift and middle mouse button you can work around it. Okay, so as you can see, added a bunch of trees. Maybe that was a bad idea. Somewhere here is empty. I think here, not here, something like here, and here, more like here, yeah. Yeah, it could be. Here and here. Okay, the thing of this tree is that this plugin is that they look a lot repetitive right now. So just select another node and with Shift select few of those trees. Yeah, and we'll just change some settings, maybe not this one. Okay, and let's go to the transform. Let's change scale to 0.5, and let's change not this one, like this one. Okay, let's see how does it look. Pretty decent. Yeah, it's a little bit empty here, so let's add 3, maybe here. Okay, so with these bigger trees in place, we can move to another asset, and it will be a birch tree, and let's place select the birch tree first, and if you move closer to the scene, it will hit it with a better precision. So yeah, let's focus again on the origin, so the shift movement will work a lot better again, and basically just spam a lot of these trees. Be aware that the scatter plugin can sometimes place multiple assets in the same place, and that's not really what we really want. Yeah, okay, and very often those small trees are around those bigger trees, so we are trying to emulate this in our scene. Let's take a look how it's looking. Maybe here. Yeah. Okay, I think it's quite a lot of those small trees. So we can move to another asset, and we will be placing some bashes. So let's go to bash 01. Bash 01 looks like it's a green again. So yeah, as I said, those small details tend to be close to the bigger ones. Yeah, so I will be trying to place them like that. Okay. Okay, this side is done. Okay, let's place it along a river to make it a little bit much more natural. Okay, and close to the trees, especially those big trees. It will feel a lot more proper. Okay, I think you can tell there's a lot of these small brushes, so let's add another one, brush 2 to fixed. Okay, so this is this red big one, so we don't want to spawn it everywhere. Yeah. Like that. As a matter of fact, the thing I want to say about those brushes, that sometimes it's better to use scissors, alpha scissors for the transparency, and some cases like those trees, it's better to just use a standard alpha blended material with depth pre-pass enable. Of course, it won't always work, as I said before. So when it doesn't work, you need to use those alpha scissors. And the thing with this DS mipmaps format is that you won't be seeing this disappearing of the bush with the skybox. So with the classic one, you'll be seeing some weird graphical artifacts. Yeah, okay, so I think this brush is done. We can move to the last one. Not this one. Okay, so this one is a little bit more colorful. Let's bound it. Okay, we can increase probably something like this. Doesn't really work. I don't really know how to use it. But yeah, replacing a lot of assets in our scene. Well, it would be better if Godot could use LOD, but right now it can't, so we just counting on thrust and cooling right now only. But the good news is that in Godot 4 we'll have an automatic LOD generation, so it will be much more performant, hopefully. Yeah, and I think we're done with those brushes. Okay, so next assets, let's go to the rocks, meshes, and I think rock 1E is the thing we want. This is the small rock, yeah, so you can again spam it as much as you want. Just you need to be aware. It's a lot of manual work, but I think it's actually pretty much worth it, because the effects will be a lot better than some kind of automatic placement. Okay, so we can add the last one, for A maybe. Let's add for A. For A, it's okay, so it's the rock a little bit bigger. So let's spam it. Not here. My mouse just went crazy. Okay, so place it here. Okay. Yeah. I think we're done with these rocks, so we can move on to the next stage. Okay, but but what we want is to add some manual details again, so we create a spatial node and call it big rocks. Okay. And with a big rocks node selected, let's go to the models, rocks, meshes, and think rock 1A. It's a kind of big one rock. Let's place it somehow in the river. So like that maybe. We can rotate it a little bit. Yeah. 1E, 2E. 2E is also a big rock. So let's move it to big rock. Rotate it. These assets are empty inside. Yeah. Let's move it a little bit higher. Let's maybe rotate it. I think like this. Okay, and maybe 5B. Yeah, also to 5A. And let's move it the position. And probably I will create some fast forward right now, because the things will be just placing those rocks. Okay, so now we are done with those assets placement, big asset placement. Let's add something more interesting. Let's hide this thing, and that's a lot of nodes. So yeah, let's hide those things, and let's add a reflection probe. So yeah, the reflection probe is placed here, and let's extend it to our wall thing, like 50 up, 28, and I think it should be okay. And as for the origin, yeah, we can move it. If we focus on it, there's those handles, and you can basically move it around. And the thing about those reflection probes is, if you look from some weird angles, it will create some problematic reflections. And as for example, it's maybe not so much visible right now, but if we change time of day, sometimes it creates weird effects. So what we can do, so we are using once baked light probe, and if we create light probe somewhere above the water, it will give a blue tint to everything. so I would recommend placing it somewhere a little bit in a darker place. Maybe not in the total shadows, but placing it in the brush sometimes help. So just remember this thing, yeah. And as you can see, it's a lot less reflective. Yeah, so let's place it here for now. And with the reflection probe on the scene, we can change some settings of this reflection probe. So I advise adding this enable shadow options. It usually gives a lot more details in the scene, and you can see intensity without reflection probe and with reflection probe. If you really want, you can go also to world environment and enable screen space reflections. And you can see you can increase depth tolerance, something more interesting, but you need to be aware of this weird roughness issues, so everything looks a little bit shiny. What you can do, you can increase the roughness of this ground and this terrain here by the river, but I, to be honest, prefer using only one reflection probe. And yeah, let's actually go back to one for the roughness. As for the normal map strength, yeah, so we can increase this to something we like more, like 2 or 3, and actually there's not much details in this big one. Okay, and as for the rocks textures, well, it's too much, but 2, I think it looks pretty nice with this much more visible normal map. Yeah, okay. And now the thing we need to add is some grass and small plants. Okay, so actually for the grass we'll be using again our terrain plugin. So basically you just select your terrain and you create add in this detail sections, and it will create a detail layer for you. Okay, so just go to this detail layer and place your textures. So we'll be using not models, we'll be using textures, and I think we'll be using grass. So let's, for example, use this DDS grass texture. It will look like this. We have some distance parameters here, but we'll just skip it for now. And just tap and drag to draw the smaller. Yeah, it's a little bit dense right now, but will decrease later. So yeah, that's the thing. You can basically use 2 modes. You can move with a shift here, and you can move by right mouse clicking and using WSSD. Yeah, okay, so this side is, I think it's done. So we place our grass here. Okay, so here is also a good place. The thing I like the thing I lack in this plugin is ability to set up a maximum height for those details, so I can't really stop it from growing on this mountain, as you can see. So it would be cool if it could be added. Let's add it here. Smaller brush. Yeah. Okay, let's increase our brush again. Let's place a lot of this small. Okay, let's again decrease it. Okay, so we are done with the first grass. It's looking like that, and we can move the second one. Okay, let's first maybe decrease the density. Let's add a second grass, and we'll use this grass here too. Okay, so we need to select our new layer and just add it here. I will deselect the first one so we'll see better. Select this one and maybe change, yeah, something like that. Okay, so the more diverse your grass is, the more natural will it look. So we actually will be adding a lot of variation to our scene. Yeah, let's Ctrl Z. Here it was too much. Okay, we're done here. Let's decrease our brush, like 28, and move and add it much more precise. We added it here. You can select density to 0 and just draw here to remove it from the places we don't want our grass to be growing on. Yeah, let's add grass again in these places. Actually, I think, yeah, we need our grass around these brushes, otherwise it will look a little bit strange. Okay, so from this side also border region on the F. Yeah, that's not what I was expecting. But yeah. Okay, so yeah, again, just decrease the layer density from 4 to 2. Let's name our first layer so you can see how it looks. So that's how it's looking right now. I think it's getting a little bit more natural, but we add yet another grass. So let's add another layer. Let's select our third texture, so we'll use this one. Yeah, let's increase our brush and select third map. Okay, so let's select this too, so we will see where we paint. With this brush. Yeah, okay. The thing is, we don't really need to paint everywhere where we painted with the previous grasses, but it's the best to do so. It will create a variation, a region on your scene. Yeah, and that's what I think. Okay, so let's actually decrease to 2, and let's see how it looks with every other grass assets. Okay, so we're getting it to be dense, so maybe change the density of each of the grass to 1. Yeah, okay, and let's another one, and this time we will use some plants. So let's use plants, maybe third one, second one, which one we like. Okay, so a little bit of color variation. Okay, so we have only TGA, but maybe it will work. Let's see. So that's how it's supposed to look. And let's disable other layers. So it's definitely too dense. 0.5 maybe even. Oh. Okay, so the thing with this TGA, as you can see, it's kinda hard to see from the far away, but we'll see. It's almost invisible from the top. So yeah, this is the thing I was talking about. With this DDS format, it will be visible a lot better. Maybe for the small details it will be alright. I'll see. Okay, so I think that should be much or less enough. Let's enable other layers. Yeah. And let's play a little bit with density. Oh, not a 10. Maybe 2 here. And the first layer. Okay. So, it's looking something like that right now, but we can further improve this using a few things. First of all, we can use another mesh. If we don't really like this simple one, we could replace it with different. And we can use a custom shader. So I will present it here for the first layer. Let's go to shader, enhance shader. Okay, so this enhance shader, okay, we need the select and select again, has a lot of other options, like it gives us a roughness option, so everything will look a little bit different. Yeah, you can see there in the background. Yeah. Yeah, and we have a transmission, so we can change it. We can also change the alpha scissors value. So I think actually pretty like maybe 0.4. The options, which is another option which is pretty nice, Okay, so this is bending parameter, so the grass will bend. As you can see, this one selected is bending, the other are just planes. Yeah. For a little more variation, we can add the bottom ambient occlusion. I think it's actually a good idea to add it everywhere, or almost everywhere. And this one doesn't really need it. And this one is okay. Okay, and if we want to further improve realism of our grass, we can, as you can see, there are still some artifacts with this brush, so I'm not sure if I will keep it in this state, or maybe I will change to alpha scissors. Okay, but back to the grass. To further improve it, we can use these two sliders. They're named global map tip bottom. I can see it doesn't work right now, and the thing is, for it to work, we need to go to the terrain node, click terrain, bake global map, and as you can see, our grass is back to normal. And actually, we can add a tint, so our grass will be the same color as our ground. We don't really want it too strong, but a little bit won't hurt us. So yeah, bottom could be a lot stronger, top should be something like that. Okay, and I think I will actually add again custom shaders because of lack of roughness. Yeah, so our grass is looking like that right now. Yeah, and the thing we can add now is some changes to the environment. So yeah, I will be back in a minute. Okay, so as I said before, now, okay, so first thing is to realize that, well, we need to find our player scale. Let's focus on it. And let's see how it will look. Okay, so that's looking terrain from the gamer perspective. I think it's actually pretty nice, but of course we can further improve it. Okay, so first of all we can set our reflection probe and we can play with it a little bit more with the grass. So we can see it's a lot more reflective here. Let's move away from our river. Let's move it to the bush, to the inside of the bush. Yeah, don't make it too light. It will look unrealistic. Okay, so that's one thing. Another thing is if we look at our light sun. Okay, so it's directly controlled by a Skyrim plugin, but we can change some things there. So we can actually go to fog and decrease it to like 100 or even 50. Yeah, we can enable fog in our world environment, so we're still linear, but we can enable fog right now. Doesn't look really too convincing because there's a bug. We need to click it to look properly. So 100 is actually quite close. 200 looks okay. So let's select something closer and let's set up a color which I think which will fit. We can sample our background and we can change to HSV and decrease the saturation a little bit. Yeah, and let's change it to something deeper. So that's how it's looking right now. And the thing is, we can play with a tone map and we can see how this scale reflection is doing. I think actually with the fog we can go even further away, so it will look like this. Yeah, and we can enable a transmit, so it will look a little bit different in the sun direction. Yeah, another thing we can do is we can add Godot from our plugin. So Godot. Yeah. So now if you look directly in the sun direction, it should create this effect, but I can't find really sun. Okay, so it's a little bit hard because it's a 12 hour. So yeah, we can change the hour to something much more easier to spot. So here we go. So this is our Godot plugin in a work. That's not really a very intense effect from the scene. We can increase exposure. So this is the thing. Okay. Okay. What else? Of course, let's go to the world environment. This color is actually not that important. Fog, transmit curve. We can enable height enabled fog, but well, it's actually not easy to control from my experience. And usually, okay, so like -5 to like 1, and height curve could be something like that, but as you can see this river is looking very strangely, so I will disable it. Auto exposure, from my experience, not really worth from a scene of this caliber. And do far blur, I am actually quite convinced that we should use it in maybe 150. 100 was okay, with a little bit of, maybe 80. Yeah, 80 sounds good. So yeah, we have this. Let's actually change an hour to something lighter. And the last thing, I think for now, is to change. Okay, so we can enable glow actually, yeah, so it will look a little bit more glower. Yeah. And now I think it's a good time to try ACs. ACs is hard to tweak based. So yeah, if you want exposure, actually like a bit more exposure, you can try to tweak white. You can also use some adjustments like increasing saturation and contrast. That's not really what you usually want. I wouldn't recommend using this adjustment tab actually at all, but if your tone mapping colors are not satisfactory for you, you could. So I will stay with ACs for now. And I will try to tweak it a bit more. So the sky, it's actually pretty bright. So we can go to the sky dome, and if you want to increase a little bit colors, we can change it to our liking. Okay, so that's the colors right now, and that's the scene, as you can see. Okay, and the last thing I would like to mention is some anti-aliasing. So let's go to General, Quality, and enable an FXAA. So yeah, I would recommend using FXAA for this kind of scenes, because with MSAA you can't really anti-alias any kind of texture-based billboards, and that's what we're using a lot in this scene. I think I will add another tree here, just because it's kinda empty from this side of this terrain. Yeah. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. You can tweak it to your liking, but that's actually the workflow I like with tools that I showed, and the results are pretty much acceptable. They of course not on the level of some higher end 3D engines, especially for vegetation, but I think with 4.0 we're getting closer to it, so we'll see. Okay, so we can disable gizmos, and we can check our FPS and our information as a last. Okay, so I think this actually a little bit too strong for my liking. Okay, so last thing I want to add this scene is an animation. So let's add animation player node, and let's create a new animation. Let's call it day night cycle. Let's increase time to 10, and yeah, let's select our time of day plugin. Let's go to something a little bit darker, like 4, and create, and let's go to the end of our animation, and let's set up it like 21. Let's key it. Okay, and let's see, let's play our animation. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. I hope you like this walkthrough and you learned something useful, and I hope I will see you on the next one. And as you can see, I made a few adjustments to this scene. So firstly, I just change a little bit of transmission and capacitors and played a little bit of roughness. So you can see actually I maybe didn't change it, so yeah, can change roughness a little bit so it's a little bit more vibrant. And I played with the scissors. I actually disabled a bit of occlusion, a few, and you can tweak it a little further. That's what I decided to stay at. As for the lighting, it's different because I changed actually the hour. It's 13, so 1st PM. Yeah, that's why I actually decrease a little bit of the exposure of the raycast. I disable FXAA actually in the end for this scene. I think it's a bit better, and I enable an ambient wind so that the grass is moving. As you can see, you can move it's a lot stronger, and it's actually looking pretty nice. Yeah, and that's mostly it. And I fixed those strange red bushes, and the problem was actually the fact that this bush was using a TGA format and not the proper DDS texture, so I just exported it from the GIMP and it's looking a lot better. No more transparency from the river. Yeah, and I think that's mostly it. You can always tweak it further. Maybe you prefer it without depth blending, as you can see here on the details. But that's how I will left it, and yeah, that's all.